Welcome to another episode of Bringing Down the Grindhouse, a podcast where we discuss horror in media. And today, it's Eddie's birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Eddie! And we're going to be discussing Hellboy, which Eddie has gracefully picked for us. The Hellboy comics, specifically.
Right. Yes.
But how's it going, John?
It's going well. I liked going through this collection. I like when things get brought together into the volumes and you don't have to go searching for
omnibus.
everything. Yeah. So is that is that an actual word?
It's a compilation of every story separated in volumes.
Okay. So I like that it was compiled and you had.
This was also
this is the first one, right? Like the first one he ever wrote.
Well, John Byrne wrote the first one.
Oh, okay.
With him, and then later on he just wrote more consecutive Hellboy stories.
How do you say his name? Mike
Mignola.
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 The G is probably silent.
Mignola.
Mignola.
However, it's
Magnolia.
and then and John Byrne, who was the writer, I'm assuming.
Yeah, who did his run of Superman and Spider-Man and X-Men, and that's where Hellboy made his first appearance, in comic-wise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the one we have is, what is it?
Seed of Destruction,
Seed of Destruction.
and Wake the Devil, and Almost Colossus, and the Wolves of St. Augustine, compiled in one volume.
Gotcha.
We both picked up the first omnibus, the Volume 1 omnibus, Seed of Destruction.
Which is available on Amazon, which is where we got it
and
from.
Barnes & Noble and your local comic book retailers.
Yeah, go to your local comic book
and
place.
Dark
Yeah, go do that.
Yeah, give them some of your cash. They deserve it.
Yeah.
Make it rain. Make it rain on Mike Mignola.
So, what was the first story we all read?
I'm assuming it's Hellboy's origin story, basically.
The Seed of Destruction, yeah.
His
definitely.
first arc of story.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Seed of Destruction, and that then there's Wake the Devil, which kind of goes a little bit more in the background of Hellboy, who his character is, where he finds out he's the beast of the apocalypse, where his red right hand is to bring the end of days and create a new Eden. This is what Rasputin tells him at the end of Seed of Destruction, of the forthcoming, he's gonna create this new Eden of the world. The world is gonna become a new world.
Yeah, basically rebirth the world again.
Well, they mention Ragnarok, don't they? Or
Yes.
at least that's the name of the operation.
Yeah,
that
Operation
Germany
Ragnarok.
has put together.
Yeah.
Or the Nazis, really.
Yep.
Which is a very pulp kind of story.
Oh, yeah. So, it basically inserts the Hellboy story into history, in this case around, World War II, when
That's
Nazi
when he
Germany
was,
was coming to
transported
power.
to Earth.
But more of, closer to the end, when they were kind of, they knew they were going to get defeated.
They're getting desperate.
They're getting desperate.
Yep.
They're starting weird experiments, and one of them was this Ragnarok project put together by Hitler and Rasputin.
Yep.
Adolf can't be a quittler.
God damn it. Anyway, fuck.
That's getting cut. No,
That's getting cut. We're cutting that.
Don't be an Adolf quittler.
Don't be an fucking goddamn it. All right. Anyways,
like Mitch mentioned, it is a lot of to me, it came off as noir. The lighting is used to really great effect for their faces.
The shading
for the shading. You don't see too many eyes, and when you do, it's a really important moment that they're gonna zoom in on someone's eyes. It does keep with a lot of the humor that Hellboy has kind of come to be known for in the
very
movies.
dry kind of humor.
Yeah,
in a
really
way.
deadpan humor that he'll deliver upon hitting a monster, or he's oh damn, he's in a bad situation. He's getting tossed across the fucking church when he's fighting. And he's just damn,
yeah,
he's
exactly.
flying away.
Damn.
So just really funny lines from him. But overall, my initial thoughts were it's really fast paced. You don't get too much breathing time between his adventures, and then he just gets right into it and gets thrown into something. He also knows a lot of people because he's just been around so long that he's been meeting all of these different people. So he knows.
He met Einstein.
Right, he met Einstein and Oppenheimer at some point because he was in New Mexico when he was younger.
And that's where he had his first love of pancakes, where he calls pancakes.
And great.
Which was a 2-page story of Hellboy just he wants spaghetti for breakfast, but the general's saying, no, you're having pancakes.
Oh, okay.
And then the beast in hell.
Is there more story about him growing up with his adoptive father?
Trevor Burnholm?
Yeah.
There's there's an arc in like BPRD 1940 through the 50s.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I feel like I would want to read more on that just because I felt like I kind of knew a little bit about him.
Yeah.
But then the beginning of the story, he like dies like
really
2 or 3 pages
Seed of
in.
Destruction. Yeah, he gets he gets offed really
Not
fast.
like how John Hurt. You like really get invested in that character, the father
Yes.
and son
Oh, yeah.
relationship.
Well, in the movie, they focused really heavily on building that relationship
Mm-hmm.
between the dad and Hellboy, and then he gets killed by Rasputin later on, or by I can't remember the name of the lackey, the guy.
Cronin.
There you go.
Yeah, which is he's different from the comics as he is in the movie.
Yeah.
He's more like an assassin,
Yeah.
and in this one, he's a meek guy in a mask.
Right. He also seems to be able to speak and like speaks really refinedly in the comics, where it's like he's kind of calm and everything like that compared to some of the other people who are a little bit more crazed about what they're doing.
Yeah.
I liked the intro. They start off with like kind of the complaint like you had from the officer in the movie, where he's like before 2 weeks ago I never heard the word parabnormal. Like, what is this shit? And then it's just like, what? Oh yeah, he's gonna come back from the dead. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then it goes right into the story where that's exactly what happens.
No. I really like how it builds up the like that. It really builds up the noir aspect where there's a lot of internal monologues going on. You know, Hellboy's exploring like the underground with the fire lady,
Liz Sherman.
Liz, thank you, Liz.
Which
and then
they're not even like a romantic couple in the comics.
Yeah, that's not
No,
even. Yeah,
not
they're just
at
partner.
all.
They're just they're like working buddies basically.
Yeah.
And so I like that aspect of it. And so they took a lot of time building up the noir aspect. Where there's a lot of like internal monologues and comments on the scenery and things like that. That really puts you into that that noir like pulpy feel. It really creates a different theme for a comic like this.
Right. So to start, what exactly happens? Like, how does Hellboy get brought into, I guess, this plane of existence?
Rasputin teleports him from hell to our world, pretty much, and it's offsite from where they are.
Right. He ends up bringing him in another location from
Yeah,
like
they're
where
like
they're
off
doing it.
the coast, like Ireland or Scotland in the comics, and they are at this church, which Hellboy goes back to later, and when he's older, to like see these ghosts of a man and a woman who are trying to save their mother from being taken by the devil, which Hellboy learns his origin. That woman who is in a chained coffin is his mother, who is a ancestor of King Arthur.
Oh shit.
So Hellboy has ties to King Arthur, and his father's a demon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. So so Hellboy's brought into world and then later on he then learns that he's basically brought to bring about the destruction of the world.
Yeah, he's supposed to be
rebirth.
like a conduit that Rasputin would use to like channel power that would open up like a gateway for all of these gods to come through. What do they call them?
The Audru Jihad.
There you go.
And there's like...
Is that a made-up name? Is that from like actual mythology? Like, did you just kind of make that?
It's
for the
like
story?
a Middle Eastern...
I thought so. I didn't look it up just yet, but I felt like he might have just pulled it from some mythologies that already exist.
Yeah, well, Mignola puts a lot of like folklore, old myths, and legends in the world of Hellboy. Like Hellboy is that character that kind of like goes through all these sort of old time sort of tales to fight monsters.
That's like most of his assignments. He gets called in because at a certain point he becomes like the detective for occult things, and then they know he can handle it. And because the Bureau has him and all of these other people, they end up sending him over to handle most of these situations. But like right at the beginning, I liked the artwork that they did for Rasputin and just how fucking crazy he is. And like he talks so much.
Oh yeah, he has a lot of stuff.
He's like reciting like passages
Yeah.
off of like a book or like some ancient book or something, and all the incantations that he's doing. And holy shit, this first story is so close to what they did for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like
the
I feel
very
like,
first movie that Guillermo del Toro did.
yes, the one I had was Ron Perlman, and then I can't remember who else
Selma
was in there.
Blair.
Yeah,
John Hurt, Doug Jones, who
yeah.
was Abe Sapien, and a lot the dad from Arrested Development.
and so you have like some lines that are pulled from the comic and put directly into those movies, which is really cool. Because having seen the movies and then going back to this and being like, oh, this is cool. There's a lot of parallels here. But I have to say, I think I preferred the comic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that the noir.
Hellboy is also a different kind of character in the comic and in the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
He has more of like certain mannerisms of the Hellboy character.
How do you mean?
Like the been through the ringer kind of character. Like this is just like his job that he has to do.
Oh, gotcha.
And not like a character who's kind of adolescent because he's doing this Beauty and the Beast relationship with the Liz Sherman character in the movie, as opposed.
Yeah, they kind of forced that into the movie, which is interesting because it's like the story exists just fine without it.
Yeah, it's not. Romances are not necessary for stories to be good.
Yeah, but Hellboy gets romantically involved with a girl that he saved from these goblins and fairies. Yeah.
Nice.
There was a story, it's in the Seed of Destruction Omnibus, or actually the complete short stories, where he has to take this corpse into a Christian grave before daybreak, and this like giant pig is stopping him from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
But this is a further story that it goes into the Darkness Calls and Wild Hunt and Fury book storyline, which gets more of a that book's more fantasy than like horror or pulp, like the previous stories from that Hellboy arc.
I mean, the two stories that I was able to get through before this week's episode were the Seed of Destruction and the Wolves of St. Augustine. One of which had definitely like a Lovecraftian like action movie sort of vibe to it, whereas the other one was just a straight up like horror. Like horror, like just a straight up horror story where it's all of the werewolf. You finally you go into the house or the old church and realize that all of these ghosts here are werewolves and whatnot, and always have been.
For the first story, so basically Hellboy gets summoned to his like adoptive father's place, and then they get attacked, which is kind of funny because they're like frog creatures.
Yeah, shape-shifting frog creatures.
Yeah, they start like getting more bulkier and beefier as the like different family members from the family kind of get possessed.
They go more into the frogs in another arc in BPRD, Plague of Frogs, which we could talk about another time.
What is the acronym?
Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense.
Got it.
And that organization is more of a public organization than
people kind of know
like a
of
secret
them.
organization like it was in the movies.
Yeah. People know that this exists and they'll call on them.
Yeah, it wasn't like Men in Black or
yeah, definitely not secretive, and they had a lot of connections. It looked like they didn't really seem like they were low funded or anything like that. But they did have experts. They had tons of experts for like specific things that they were looking into. But his adoptive father gets attacked and pretty much killed in this beginning scene. And then you find out a little more about what exactly the family was looking for. So they get summoned they get sent to this house that's supposed to be like cursed. And they start finding out more.
Standing on a body of water.
Yeah, it's like being held up somehow, like right next to a lake. And it's like a good hiding place for the ruins.
And like a tentacle Lovecraftian creature.
Yeah, it's like kind of like a tomb for that creature, and then Rasputin has been like feeding it basically with all the life force from the family members. But he originally had to go find it. Like it was in the North Pole, like basically on top of the world. He had to go find it first. So all those expeditions that the family was going on, they were all trying to find it.
Rasputin was sort of like in hibernation.
Yeah, that's crazy. So he like basically did a hibernation like a monk and sat down, and then it was Professor, what is his name, the dad,
Trevor Brutenholm.
Yeah, he basically like touches his face and wakes him up, and then he lets him like
as opposed to what they did in the movie was a blood sacrifice.
Right. Oh yeah, they had some random person like be sacrificed.
Their Sherpa.
Yeah, and so he allows him to escape so that he can lure Hellboy out, and then he can attack both of them. And that's sort of like the story that progresses after that. But they have to get this statue over to the house, and it's why the house remains cursed after that, because the creature is taking in all the power from all the creatures in the lake and all of the like plants and things like that. So that's why everything seems dead when they arrive.
Yeah. It's also interesting how they introduce Ape Sapien in the book, because Ape Sapien, how he's introduced is like in a tank, swimming, eating rotten eggs.
Yeah.
And reading books.
Well, he's
And-
wearing a hilarious disguise in the
Yeah, like
comics.
a
It's like a
beard.
mustache.
I love it though. It's so awesome. I love that
Yeah.
he's got the hat and it like
A
totally like is
beard
like
and
it's like a
glasses.
throwback to that noir look and stuff
Yeah,
like that as well.
exactly.
So it's another like a lot of love letters to that type of style.
The woman
definitely.
comments that he looks very sickly and pale.
Aw.
And he just-
Yeah, she's like, "Are you sure you don't want me to take your coat and hat? You look really pale."
He's like, nah, I'm good.
But it's sort of interesting how they introduced that character, and Hellboy is a demon as well. Like
Who, Abe?
yeah.
Oh, really?
Because Hellboy is, it's like nonchalantly there's Hellboy introduced, like it's no big deal. There's a
Yeah,
demon
there's not too much introduction
And
besides
then
it's
Abe
like, oh, he
Sapiens
got
of-
summoned.
as a fish man.
Well, they said they found him in a tank underneath an abandoned place in
Sapiens.
Washington D.C. Yeah, and then on a little inscription on it had like something sapien, and then he got
Sapien.
It was the
Yeah.
day that
Abraham
Lincoln
Lincoln.
was assassinated.
And
That's why they
that's-
named him Abe.
And that's how he get his name. Abe.
well, I
right.
mean, at one
Yeah.
point Hellboy calls him Abraham, so like it is like a full name, but he just ends up calling him Abe Sapien. And so so you find out about those characters, and then you get more information onto why all of this is sort of happening. And so that's when they kind of go down into the house to figure out what's going on. They go like right into the action.
Well, Liz Sherman gets kidnapped by one of the frog
Mm-hmm.
creatures.
Well, Abe jumps into the water first to go check out what's going on, and then Liz calls him on like the little walkie-talkie, whatever they have.
The calm.
Yeah, and then she's like, I don't know why there's all these weird frogs around here.
Yeah.
And of course Hellboy knows about the frogs from when
Son
his
of a
dad.
bitch.
frogs.
So he like runs down the hall to find her, and she's already gone, and that's like his first encounter with one of them. And
Second encounter.
yeah, second encounter.
Yeah,
You're
'cause
right.
He kills the frog.
He didn't. Yeah,
He's like,
he
"That's it for
shoots. I love that he makes comments about how he's not a good shot. And
Yeah,
he just
yeah,
has
yeah,
a
no.
huge gun, so he's just like, can't really miss.
So you got a gun now. Yeah. Like you learned how to use it yet?
After 50 plus years after World War II.
Yeah, right. And he's just never. He always punches things.
Well, he changes his gun too. He has like
Yeah.
a revolver to start, and then he changed it to like a more modernized gun. But I mean, revolver is kind of like an aesthetic choice for them to use something like that.
Another noir.
Yeah,
thing.
all of it. Yeah.
All of it's very like he just is like it's
You
just
could
like
tell it's-
Hellboy
yeah.
read a bunch of detective novels and just really wanted to be them.
Hellboy just gets clever with whatever he can pick up to use as a weapon against monsters.
He does really pick up a lot of things and
Mm-hmm.
just starts beating the shit out of all the monsters.
Like he'll take a harpoon or a sword. He even wields Excalibur in the
Nice.
What?
yeah,
That's cool as fuck.
because he's the heir of King Arthur,
Yeah, so he's
That's
technically like
that's pretty awesome.
technically worthy to
which
hold
the
it.
current movie did. Yeah, like the middle story of Hellboy's life.
Mm-hmm.
It did?
Yeah, it's Hellboy's quits the bureau and he has his journey takes him like back to Africa, and
Okay.
then he reunites with that girl he saved from the fairies
Oh, gotcha.
and goblins, Alice, and they have like a romantic. He also becomes like a Byron-esque kind of character.
I did notice that on his encounters with these monsters, that he sort of like gets angrier and then like kind of gets a little more strength from that, which is something that I felt like you didn't really see like in the movies or really anywhere else. So it's like he does get pretty pissed off and gets some more strength from that. So that was interesting. I was
He's
like,
not as cold and emotionless as he
Yeah,
kind of
he-
is in the movies.
we get a little more history on how Rasputin got the statue over to the house and how he kind of used the family as well as he basically used Hitler and all of his resources to get what he wanted.
Because Hitler had no vision.
Yeah, it was really funny. They were like basically making fun of Hitler and being like, "Look at this tiny man," and like, and he basically brainwashed him and all of the other like high-ranking officials to like give him money for these weird
The
occult
Third Reich.
things. Yeah,
Yeah, there's even a character in the comic who has a swastika for his glass lens.
that's so. Yeah, I liked. That's actually the dude I was looking at right here. There's a whole page that tells you all about him and his like team, and they all have some crazy gnarly names that I don't think I can pronounce. But
Ilsa Hopstein, who becomes Hecate later on in the Wake of the Devil
right,
story.
it's like on. Yeah, there you go. You got it.
Leopold Kurtz and
Yeah.
Isa Hopstein and Professor Dr. Karl Ruprecht Cronin, and then name unknown.
Which is Rasputin.
Von Krupt Klaus Werner.
Werner.
Whatever. Anyway.
I like his description for his death. He was committed to Eisenwald Sanitarium. Died 6 months later. Body discovered to be infested with beetles of unknown species. No explanation.
Damn, that's fucking crazy. That's cool shit.
So they include these cool little bits in the story where it's like you have some folklore. There's even like an African myth about frogs and how that's significant to the story and why he had frog creatures helping him.
That's what I love about Hellboy. He's just rich.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of folklore, a lot of depth to the like source material that they're pulling from. And so they end up using it kind of to their advantage to keep creating stories and things that Hellboy runs into because they all sort of like over arc. The main piece of it is that Rasputin is basically trying to bring these huge gods to the world so they'll destroy everything, and that's like his main goal. And he's convinced that like they speak to him and tell him to like do their bidding and whatnot, and he'll constantly ramble on about it.
It makes a different kind of character as like a comic book villain character as opposed to like the Joker or Lex Luthor, who wants to like take out their character.
Well, the Joker is one of those people, like, they had a really good line in one of the movies where it's like he couldn't be bought, reasoned, or bullied with. Like, he really just wanted to see all the chaos unfold. Rasputin, to me, was like he had a very direct goal in what he's trying to do, but he seems to just be, like, unlimited power with all the stuff he does and gets brought back several times.
Yeah, he's a character of mysticism.
Yeah.
As well. So
like I don't want to say wizard, but like
cult. He's definitely like a cult leader sort of idea. He's definitely he has like the crazed, like the deranged religious leader sort of thing going for him. He always talks in scriptures. He's always wearing his robes with all his symbols on it and everything. I actually really like the fight with him and Hellboy is actually really awesome because it's just him like doing all these chants until Hellboy gets up to him and starts messing with him, and then pieces of his body just start getting blasted off and he becomes like more deranged and hellish looking as it goes on until Hellboy just like pummels him into skeleton essentially. And I actually really, really like the line at the very end when he's about to like off him. He's like, think, creature. If you kill me, you'll never know who you are. You'll never understand the power inside you. Yeah, you're right. And then he just fucking like does not give a fuck and is just gonna destroy this dude and then just crushes him, and it's pretty great. I love it. Good stuff.
That's what's great about the Hellboy character. He's just a very nonchalant blue collar agent.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be like wanting any sort of great power. He just want to exist in the world.
He thinks he's like one of the guys. He views himself as a human being, but like Rasputin, the Blood Queen, Hecate, and Baba Yaga even, they know who he truly is and what he's capable of being.
Isn't that like literally the boogeyman?
The Baba Yaga?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a Russian witch.
Right, yeah. It's like a folklore from Russia.
There was a short story where the Baba Yaga was counting fingers as Hellboy was hanging out in the graveyard. And I forget what prompted him to get in a conflict with Baba Yaga in that story.
Yeah.
Until he like took out her eye with his gun. And she just like...
Was he just like shoot her point blank or...
Yeah, he got a lucky shot with her eye.
Oh.
And in later stories, there's like the Baba Yaga where she wants Hellboy's eye for like an eye for an eye.
Oh, I see.
Treatment. Because he took her eye. She's going to take his eye.
Right.
And that will also lead into like Hellboy in Hell. Where Hellboy just hangs out in Hell and it's more of like... it's like almost like a final story for Hellboy.
Okay.
But then he comes back to Earth to stop the events of Ragnarok happening again, which is another story where BPRD, The Devil You Know, which is a current story that they concluded on the whole like Hellboy arc.
Right. So this is just like a small piece of like all the other stories
just
that he kind of gets involved with. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like...
This is a good introductory story.
Yeah, this is a good way to like kind of get into it if you want to explore more of it. I liked his outfit.
Just a long like duster coat.
Yeah, really just like
shorts.
The coat and shorts and like his little like utility belt really that holds his gun.
That he carries a accoutrement. So
is he barefoot most of the time?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
cloven hood barefoot.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
like where he wears boots in the movies.
I don't
Yeah.
even think he wears pants.
No,
Just shorts.
Yeah, they're just
Oh,
shorts.
he wears shorts
yeah.
with his little belt. There
Yeah.
you go.
Without a shirt or anything.
Yep.
Other times he's worn like the BPRD labeled T-shirt, or he wears
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, or a suit. He's even wore a poncho and a Mexican sombrero when he's fighting a luchador vampire.
Dude, what?
Where is this? Why didn't you tell us to get that one? I want to see that one.
Hellboy in Mexico.
Hellboy. That's what it's called. Hellboy in Mexico.
I gotta go find it.
Oh
now.
my god! Yes.
This sounds fucking great.
The movie opens up with a Hellboy in Mexico story arc a bit.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Wait, is it a comic or a movie?
The current Hellboy in Mexico is a comic, yes, and the current movie opened up with that story arc a little bit.
Oh, the most recent one that came out.
Yeah, with David Harbour as Hellboy.
I haven't watched it just yet.
Nope,
People
haven't seen it
like
yet.
shit on that movie. They were
Yeah.
like, "This is the dumbest movie."
Well, I think partly because people wanted a third movie.
right from the other series that had already
Yeah,
been
'cause
established. Well, I mean, they
Guillermo
like
del Toro talked about doing a trilogy
right.
of the Hellboy movies, but he never was able to like finish that story.
Well, they teased that like Hellboy and Liz were gonna have a kid. Well,
Twins. They were gonna.
yeah, that's it. They were gonna have twin babies, and that
They
they
were
wanted
gonna
to
be
continue the
named
story.
Magog, and they were gonna be the Children of the Apocalypse story, which I think was a bit of a stretch to do. I don't know.
I think people got
Hellboy
stuck
2
too
kinda-
on Ron Perlman being Hellboy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because he did do a good.
He did.
portrayal
Yeah.
of
He
it,
did such a good job that
he
it's
looks
like.
like Hellboy without the makeup.
I liked the way that the new guy looked.
David Harbour.
Yeah, I like the way he looked. He
looked like straight off of a heavy metal cover.
Yeah, they even made him look really ugly. Like his,
Yeah,
He had like a
exactly.
heavy brow. Like his hair was kind of down most of the
More
time.
exaggerated features. It
Yeah.
looked like he actually looked through
Like he was beat up.
Yeah. Exactly.
that he fought monsters.
Yeah. He wasn't quite as, like,
Clean
Clean looking, yeah, as like Ron Perlman's
Yeah,
Hellboy was.
Ron Perlman had really smooth features on the makeup in that one.
For his face,
Really,
yeah.
really smooth features. And then you look at this other one, and you've got like this like gross like mouth looking guy, and he's got scars on his face.
Yep.
And yeah, exactly. No, it's really. Yeah, he looks a lot better. I just haven't seen the movie, and I'm not sure how it is. I know Eddie's seen it.
It's a decent movie. It's not like a bad movie.
Yeah, I'll probably
entirely.
like it. I have no expectations for it.
But the thing is, it tells 3 different stories
Oh, gotcha.
of Hellboy. Like they do the Hellboy in Mexico story, and then they do like the Wild Hunt and the Fury story. And it's a very much of a middle story in between chapter of Hellboy's arc till he goes to hell. And like there's no ape sapien till the end of the movie, and they find him in a canister.
Oh, that's weird. Okay.
Yeah, just like how they found ape sapien in the comics in a canister.
How does he end up in hell again? Does he just go, like, or does he get like sent off somewhere?
I believe he's like killed off in the Wild Hunt and the Fury story,
Okay.
and then he I need to read that story again. To be honest. It's kind of been a while for me, but yeah.
I also thought it was really funny that Hellboy has like tiny legs compared to like the rest of him.
Illustrated.
Yeah.
Just the way that the body proportions are illustrated, it basically like will put stuff like the skinnier parts will be like in it it's like the detail comes from where all the action and like the point of focus is going to be.
Yes.
Whereas the rest of it is just sort of there to give like what the rest of it is. Like even the cover of this comic, he has like this super skinny little wrist arm, like his little baby wrist arm, and then this like giant
Nice
hand of
stone
doom on the other
hand.
side. Yeah. And it's really funny because then there's other pictures in there where he just has a normal arm. It's just like muscled
Yeah.
and normal. But in this one in particular, he looks really like skinny, like he's almost like kind of a strange mutant creature or something along those lines.
Mike Mignola has this. Alan Moore has described his artwork to be Jack Kirby German expressionist style, which
That makes sense.
yeah,
That makes
but
sense
I
for
don't think Mike Mignola ever thought of it that way. I think he always tried to be like certain artists that he was growing up during the time. Like,
Well, if he pulled from the source material, like from those classic stories, then
Yeah.
those were based off of expressionist things. So that would make sense that he kind of did it without realizing that that's sort of like what it would be viewed as now. Because like, have you seen, what is that movie? Is it the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari?
No,
That's
I've
like
not seen
considered to be like the most
German expressionist.
the most
Tim
German
Burton loves to
expressionist movie.
overuse.
Yeah, exactly. You end up going and watching it. It's way too long and it's boring. But it's important for film analysis because it's like the German expressionist film that came out during that time period, and it looks almost exactly like the
I
comic.
kind of prefer Nosferatu myself.
Nosferatu is amazing. Like that was actually a really good movie.
As like a German expressionist horror film.
Yeah.
And I think we should definitely talk about Shadow of a Vampire and the remake that they did in the late 70s.
Yeah, that'd be a good combo actually. Yeah, those are really good. But it serves to use that kind of art style with these characters because of the content. So it has to deal with monsters, monster hunting, occultism, and sort of bringing them all together for these story arcs. And it was cool to see Hellboy be sort of that character. To me, it's like it's kind of a funny reference, but like he's sort of like Blade. Mm-hmm. Where Blade is a vampire himself and half human and having to deal with his own place.
He's a Van Helsing.
He's also a Van Helsing character.
He's the monster that fights the monsters.
Yeah.
I'm excited that Mahershala Ali is going to be Blade.
Yeah, that was such a good casting.
Really though. Really was.
And everyone has been
I agree.
Like, will Wesley Snipes ever come back? But
Wesley Snipes told people to shut the fuck up and
He's
stop
old.
complaining.
He's old and over it, dude.
Yeah, he doesn't want to. I mean, he said he would do it, but he's glad that they starred this guy because he thinks he'd be a good fit for it.
Yeah.
And
he's
so I was
younger
like,
too, man, and he's just younger. You know, he's a younger guy. His performance in
the way he smiles, he has almost like a vampire-like smile in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Where he shows his teeth.
Yeah. I mean, his performance in Luke Cage was good enough for me.
He was
like
Cottonmouth, right?
Yeah. And his performance in that, I was like, yep, that guy can do Blade.
Definitely.
Yep. I think that was enough for me to be like, yep, that's fine. It's a perfect person to take it.
Also, the first one was like, it was meant to have the humor of the time. Like, you couldn't have that version of Blade today. It'd be too cheesy.
Okay.
Like, you watch like the original Blade movies, and they're really cheesy. They're kind of campy.
Steve Norton, even Guillermo del Toro did the second movie.
Yeah. Oh man, that was so good.
Mm-hmm.
I like all of them.
Blade Trinity is just garbage, though.
I mean, it was garbage, but it was hilarious because it had what is his name?
Ryan
Reynolds in it, and he's always his talking.
Pre-Deadpool.
Yeah, exactly. So he was like just getting into being this talkative character that just won't shut the fuck up.
Guzzling thunder cunt. And there's like a little vampire, like Pomeranian in the movie.
Like its mouth opens like a predator.
well, like the vampires from the Blade 2.
Right. Well, they're like, I don't even know if they're vampires anymore at that point. Aren't they like hybrids?
They're still vampires, essentially.
Yeah. They eat vampires themselves. So that's why they ask for Blade's help.
I think there's just like different breeds or species of vampires.
Yeah. But yeah, so the art style makes sense. We even had like a classic werewolf story.
Yeah, I mean we had a classic werewolf, and it makes sense. Like, I mean, maybe Mignola didn't intend for the art to be interpreted that way, but I don't think I would be remiss in saying that he would be influenced by viewing some of that artwork and whatnot. Yeah. Definitely,
he wanted he wanted to put together a team book, and he wanted to do it like Marvel or DC. And Mike Richardson, who does the publication editing of Dark Horse, was trying to get away from doing like adaptations comics from like Terminator and Predator and Aliens, which Dark Horse was doing at the time, to like original characters. And Mike Mignola, who did like Batman and a Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom team up book as well, liked his style enough to say, let's see what kind of story you can do for us. Pretty much, and that's how the Seed of Destruction. He also had the Hellboy was a bit of a concept piece. There was a convention he went to where he was just doing an original character that said, if you don't want to do like any other character that you've done before, why don't you do a fresh one?
I think that photo or that piece of art is also in here towards the end.
Yeah,
he explains that
version of Hellboy.
He wasn't intending to draw Hellboy. He wanted to draw a demon, and then at the last minute, he put in Hellboy on like the belt buckle, basically, and thought it was funny, and he just kept going with it. And people were like, "This is actually a cool character. You should pursue that." And he ended up making that. And like you said, he was originally trying to make like a whole comic where it was a team,
which is the BPRD book.
Yes, exactly. And then he fleshed it out some more with the characters, and then kind of made that whole bureau, and then that's how he kind of placed the story together. There's a lot of concept art and like sketches towards the end, which gives you an idea of like the evolution of the characters and how he wanted them to look, which is really cool. I always love seeing concept art for things like that because you get to see their design process.
That's not the art you're talking about? Those are some of the first Hellboy sketches. That was what he's telling me.
Yeah. There's a few sketches which
probably
look nothing like the final product, but they're really cool to look at. And it's always a cool thing
Just
to look
doing ideas.
into the sketchbooks of some of these artists because they must draw so many
for-
things.
Yeah, he loved like old school Dracula. Is what he's saying in your name is like some of his like influences.
He actually, Mike Mignola also did a bit of that Francis Ford Coppola Dracula. Like he was doing the comic book adaptation at the time when that movie was still being like edited.
That's pretty wild because Coppola is like that for that era of film was really well known for portraying those in a really good way, especially because he basically created a new style as far as like filmmaking goes. So to be able to adapt something like that would be really cool.
Yeah, but it was also he did like some concepts for the Dracula's Castle, and I think they also reprinted the 4-part series that Top Cards originally published of that adaptation. Which
Okay.
you can find, but it's all in black and white instead of color, which it was originally printed in.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, as far as like the whole story goes, how do you guys feel about like what we mentioned earlier, where Hellboy is a demon essentially who is hunting other occult things? Like, does that vibe with you? Do you think that's like a good story to follow?
Absolutely, because it gives you as a story writer and whatnot, it gives you the ability to do a lot of interesting things with the character. You have a lot of conflict that you can play into on there, because you have, the man who is viewed as a monster by some who are around him, some that accept them, and then it's about like, it seems like Hellboy also tries to find acceptance in the world as well, because he's not exactly accepted by the average folk.
Well, he's one looking mostly for a father figure, which he finds in his first like adoptive father, but he also makes he gets a lot of acceptance from like religious people, from other people that he meets and saves, and they like end up getting a lot of respect for him. But they almost always
like priests and nuns.
Yeah, they almost always get killed
Catholic.
though.
That's an interesting thing, because a lot of the times, a lot of comics from this time period and whatnot paint religious people into a very negative light.
Yeah, they're
most
like
of the
fanatics.
Time. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and then this one, like that happens a lot, and in this one, it's sort of not exactly always like that. So I like that it plays with that gray area a lot more.
Also, this was also a book that kind of surpassed the 90s.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of comics weren't doing that great during the 90s.
No, they weren't.
The market was sort of like Marvel was going bankrupt.
Yep.
I'm not sure what.
Which is crazy to think about considering where they're at
Yeah, right.
now.
Where they are now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like there was a whole new Image was a new publishing, which artists were doing their own original characters as well. And Hellboy crossed over with Savage Dragon, which was their original character. And Hellboy has plenty of stories and characters. You can like throw Hellboy at a wall and just like pick any other story or character from that arc that stands out from like anything else that was done in the 90s. I feel like.
Oh, gotcha. So they inserted stories usually that had been done, but then re-imaged it for Hellboy.
Yeah, that's what I felt like. That's what the great thing about Mignola. He just like took familiar old tale stories, reintroduced them, but put the character Hellboy in those situations.
Well, yeah, that's some good writing then, because you have really solid source material, and then you kind of make it your own.
It allows you to be passionate with it too, because if you really admire the source material of what you're basing your work off of, then you get really into it, and then you make wonderful stories, and they become iconic classics like this.
Right, and I feel like Hellboy to me was definitely like the anti-hero, where you end up having you're okay with the fact that he's not going to do everything the correct way, and kind of does his own thing. He gets angry most of the time and like does things impulsively, instead of sort of following these rules, kind of like what they introduced in the second movie, or second or third movie. Was it the second one?
Golden Army?
Yeah, the one where they brought in the doctor who's in like the suit. He's like a gas, basically.
Johann Kraus?
Yeah, and like that guy is just by the rules the whole time, and is like pissed that Hellboy is not following any of these rules.
That guy was also voiced by Seth MacFarlane.
I didn't know that.
The voice of Stewie and Peter Griffin is voiced by...
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed that movie too. Honestly, I liked the story about the elves basically, and their like promise to not kill humans, and then the like son or the prince returns and is like, nope, like we're gonna fucking kill everybody, and then they have like their own family conflict. So that was a cool story. I liked it. but it also was going along the lines of Hellboy.
That was one of the strengths of that movie, I felt.
Yeah, you had this. You were almost like you couldn't decide who you wanted to sort of get to the end and win whatever victory that they had.
Yeah, that character was more like a sympathetic character than like there was a purpose.
Yeah,
for why
I never felt watching that he was doing something wrong necessarily. He was really in his full right to kind of go against what was going on, because he's like, I didn't make this promise. I don't know why we decided to do this. We need to like remain people
between human beings and the creatures of the old world.
Yep. Yeah, they like told him, "Oh, you're gonna stay here. You guys stay here, and we won't like interfere with each other."
Yeah, it's sort of like he's a very round character in how they portray Hellboy as a character, because he could very easily just be like a testosterone fueled muscled meathead. You could totally have played him that way, but they don't. They make him kind of sympathetic to people.
He's also really open to experts, to people who are like who know a lot of things. He'll like sit and listen and get help.
Roman in the movie.
Yeah, which was interesting. He was like kind of a cocky asshole in the movie, where he didn't really need anyone's help and liked going in solo. And even in the comic, they're like, "Oh, sorry, you're gonna have to go by yourself." And he's like, "That's not fair."
Hellboy kind of reminds me of, it's kind of like if Conan went into like a supernatural, organization, and like you just kind of put a character like that in there, and that's kind of how I think he'd end up turning out if you did that. You know, 'cause
right?
He's sort of a like he's got the tough guy demeanor, but he's not impractical though.
No, not at all.
But he will do what it takes to get shit done.
Yeah,
that's kind of the deal.
Right, exactly. And then I think that's what I ended up liking most about his character, was that because he is a flawed character, you kind of can relate to some of these characters a little more when you're reading them, because they have these things they really want. Well, and for him, it's like that acceptance.
Yeah, he based a bit of Hellboy off of his dad, who was like a carpenter.
Okay.
So this guy was a bit of a blue-collar character.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like he was really like, he didn't have a whole lot of money. He wasn't wanting to get like, extravagant with what he was doing. He did just want to do his job, make sure people were okay, and was like, he must have stayed with the Bureau to help them, like, because he felt like he was doing something that made sense.
Which I would love to see more of that done in the TV shows than what we got in the movies.
Right. They went straight to like the biggest overarching story of like all of his stuff, instead of kind of like, you can get a lot of content out of the many like adventures he basically goes on with Abe and Liz, and then like the cast of recurring characters that they bring in. Like, I think one guy is only on like one frame in the comic, and that was it. That was like the only time you ever saw him. And so I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, he's like, oh, we're signing this guy to you. And then that was it. You don't see him again in the comics ever again.
He didn't make it on the first mission.
Right. Like, something happened, I guess. But stuff like that, where it would make for a good TV show.
Well, I feel like today, I think comic books fit better in TV now.
Yes. People are more open to the idea of something being adapted.
Like, Netflix did the Marvel shows. They did the Dark Horse Umbrella Academy show.
That was good. I liked it.
And there's DC who did Doom Patrol and Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like comic books are very episodic in a way. They're just very long.
Right.
Arcs.
Well, that must be appealing in like a business aspect. Be like, oh, we can get a lot out of this, and so we're gonna make like 1-2 seasons of it, and then see if people like it.
Movies are very specific. You
have to narrow your focus.
I feel we discussed this maybe last episode, where it was like the companies are more willing to take a risk on something that already has a fan base established for it.
So
hence
comics,
comic books, great, have huge plethora of source material to go off of, so less work in pre-production, but it also makes it so that they're less willing to accept new ideas.
Yes.
So it's a double-edged sword. At one point, you're getting all these cool comic book movies made. Some of them not necessarily the way you want them to be made.
No.
And then and it's great. It's cool. And then at the same time, it's kind of also like, it's like kind of cluttering the market a little bit. Like, there's so much going on that there's not enough room for like newer things to come through.
Like The Boys just came out last night. For my birthday, and I was just like watching a bit of that, and I saw Carl Urban's ass.
Good for you.
Yes.
Glorious.
The Carl Urban crush.
Yeah, the Carl Urban crush. It's coming back.
We're gonna get a photo of you with like hard eyes, and it's just Carl Urban.
Yeah. Carl Urban senpai noticed me.
That's so great. Well, you know what? I was talking with a lot of people from San Diego State and like the professors and whatnot. They are convinced that TV is going to be really popular soon. That like that's what they're heading towards because people don't want just a single movie. They want like a huge amount of content to go through. It's why you're getting like the Bounty Hunter show from Star Wars. It's why you're getting like new Star Trek. Like why you're getting like all these adaptations. They're even doing the Watchmen one as well. So it's like you're going to get these stories that we know they exist. They've already been done in comics, but they're going to make more of it. They're going to fill in all of like the gaps where you're going to see like the whole story, and you get to see like 14, 15 hours of it.
Here's the thing. George Clooney, when he made his big break in ER back in the 90s.
Yeah.
TV has more of something intimate. It's going to be in your bedroom.
Oh, and it's just you in your house. You get super, super connected to the people. Yeah. You're like really invested.
And movies are more like you're on a date. You're going to like get immersed differently.
That's accurate.
Yeah.
I could see that. I've watched plenty of shows where I think I postponed watching the end of a few shows because I was like, oh man, this is like the last episode. And like I didn't want to finish watching it. But there's just like there is an intimacy to watching it because of how much you're going to get to know about these characters. They now have however many plus hours, like Game of Thrones, 70 to 80 hours of content that they had to kind of give you an idea of who this character was. And then by the end of it, you do not want them to die. You don't want anything bad to happen. But it's like, it's all the more effective for having so much content that when you do kill someone or something bad happens, it'll affect the crowd and you get a huge reaction out of people watching the show, and you get all this discussion and buzz around it.
Making a show I think it's a different skill set.
Yeah,
writing a show as opposed to writing a movie, because there are movies where you can create the same effect with a character, usually with just one character though, because you only have enough time to maybe focus on one or two people to get everyone like really invested. Yeah, exactly.
I would say that some of the big directors would not be good TV writers.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They might not be able to. They might actually like working in a more
example of someone who
like Spielberg would not be a good TV. I don't
Stranger Things in a way is very Spielberg.
They copied like the aesthetic of the time period and like what they were doing for
Spielberg
like
also produced some of our.
He's definitely a producer and he knows how to bring people together for the items. But as far as like the solid writing for something like that, but he is mostly a director. But I do think he would have a hard time directing just a single episode because he wants it to be larger.
Does both,
he's really good too at doing those. So that's kind of like the in between where you're able to do TV shows as well as that. If I was making something, I would want a TV show. Like I want more content. And to explore everything. I wouldn't want just a movie. I would want to do like a TV series and then like make a movie after, where it's like a single event or story out of that world you've already created. But I think that's just because I want to do writing and directing. So like I'm going to be creating all of the world, as opposed to just like someone gives you the stuff and they're like, I need you to direct everyone in this right direction. This is like the vision that I have.
You want to be part of the creative process of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. What ultimately is sort of like the ending, or have they created an ending for Hellboy just yet?
There's the series Devil You Know, which is...
Does he ever get older? Like, I know he ages really slowly.
I don't
Is there
think
old
so,
man Hellboy?
but just his character matures.
Yeah, I'm sure, after all those events.
Yeah, like, even he feels lost after, like, spending his life killing monsters or hunting them for this agency, and then he's on his own and he doesn't really know where he's going in life, and he keeps getting reminded that he's the beast of the apocalypse. He's creating this new Eden,
right,
which he has no interest of doing. He likes
living there. He doesn't want to get rid of all these people he's met and made connections with.
Exactly, which is a very human character.
Yeah, for him being bright red and a demon, he has a lot of human characteristics. I read a really interesting article about the Hellboy comics that was analyzing how they felt about him being a demon and hunting other demons. So the comparison they made was like they're hiring criminals to go get other criminals, and like how do people feel about that? Because the connections they were making was like to modern social commentary. So like, how do you feel about cops who are people of color, who are part of the system and like being a part of that oppression for anyone else that's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's like, how do you then feel about comics that are similar and they're getting this idea across, where this is somebody who is supposed to be on the other end of the gun but is usually the one hunting them down? So are they being used in some way? But I think in this case, Hellboy makes a lot of good connections with people, so I wouldn't say that he's like just getting used as a tool for like them, and they're not like a crazy government organization. They're just like on their own.
Yeah, it's kind of like a private organization that handles things.
You know what it reminds me of? Did you guys ever read the Hellsing manga or like
yes.
You know how they have
the
like
the cop lady that turns vampire? I forget her name, but yeah.
I did read.
I watched that series like all in one go.
Dope, isn't that?
It's like 10
Hellsing's badass.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that it reminds me of Black Klansman.
Also,
that's a really good one. That one really analyzes that social struggle. Analyzes that social struggle as well, where he's trying to be a cop. He's just a black dude trying to be a cop, and
in the early 70s.
Yeah, exactly. During the time of that civil rights movement and whatnot.
In Colorado.
So it's really, really like and it plays with that. It analyzes that idea really well in that one. And so it's very similar in Hellboy in the same way, where he is like, quote unquote, the bad guy. Going taking down the bad guys,
right?
Quote unquote, and being part of the system.
The great thing about like even Black Klansman is this is a character who wants to have a relationship with a woman he's infatuated with, and she views as all cops as pigs.
Yeah,
and it's sort of a double-edged sword for that relationship, where he wants to have a healthy relationship, but if she just views him just as a cop, a man who is a badge and has a job to do. Pretty much. And then he is also fighting the Klan in Colorado.
It's true. He's very directly involved with trying to like bring them down. So he is doing a lot of work.
He wouldn't have joined. His character would not have joined the force if he didn't agree with being a part of a force like that.
Yeah, and he also has some people within the department who support him as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's some that don't.
Yeah, they're like, fuck this guy, and they try to put desk assignments.
Without getting too much into it, I love how that movie explores like the true grayness.
Yeah.
Of the world, because it's not all one way or
right.
the other. It never is.
The gray area.
Yeah, it's always that gray area, because he's dealing with people who are like on his side. There's people who are against him, even being a part. Yeah, exactly.
I think the reason why I like this aspect of Hellboy is because I feel like if you're gonna make some sort of hero and they're just like flawless and like they're just always
like
going to
Superman
do the right thing.
Or Spider-Man.
This is why I don't like Superman. Like, because he's pretty much like a flawless character. He doesn't like ever really like. I know he has like a physical weakness, which is like the
but it's not really.
But other than that, it's not like something within himself.
He's a very foilable character.
Yeah,
that he's created.
Yeah, exactly.
That's his secret identity. That's not like his actual identity himself.
Right. And so when they do stuff like that, they sort of maintain the status that's very far away from people. Like, how many people do you think relate to Superman?
No one.
Yeah, no one does. He's just the guy who flies in and saves the day. So it's like, this isn't the kind of hero that you're sort of looking for.
I think that was also the great thing about Marvel is that Stan Lee helped create like characters you can relate to.
Yeah, a lot of characters you
as
can
opposed
relate
to like a character who's a reporter and is an alien from another world, or you're a rich philanthropist who is a crime fighter at night wearing the guise of a bat.
I love the very subtle way you described Batman.
Yeah, well,
but it's true. That's what he does. Yeah.
There was that. What was it? It was an ultimate death battle. I think that was between Goku and Superman. That made a really good point about the two of those. Well, the two characters. I'll get to the point of it, but there was one. They made a good comparison. Basically, Superman is always going to be as strong as he needs to be to handle whatever it is.
Yes.
He's never not going to be strong enough to handle it.
That's also a thing. Like he's OP in his story.
Yeah, exactly. And
like
whereas
D&D.
I mean, and then the comparison is that you have Goku who always has to work his ass off to get to that, to get to whatever he's fighting.
He does train, yeah.
He always has to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's repetitive and it's boring, but there's that just
it should
exhibits
also be
flaws.
noted
It makes
that
Goku more human because he has to in the meta of the world that they're in, John. I know that he's not actually human.
I'm just saying Goku's a terrible father.
Yeah, he is a terrible father. That is true. Yes, absolutely. The best father's Piccolo.
Exactly.
We all know that. Piccolo's the real daddy.
I always thought Piccolo was like a alien pickle.
You know what? Really though. Yes.
Wait, the whole show, their names are based off of food, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
Kakarot,
but Piccolo's a musical instrument though, and I always
also
kept thinking, when I was younger, I always thought like a pickle, like just a vinegary cucumber.
I mean, they look green.
He's green, yeah. They're pretty green. But without getting too much off of Hellboy, but that was kind of like another sort of comparison that I would look at, whereas like where one character actually has to struggle to do anything, and like Superman's whole thing is, oh no, kryptonite, blah.
It's kind of
and then
funny.
someone kicks the rock away from him, and he's like, I'm better now.
Yeah. To be honest, it's really funny, and I love how aggressive Lex Luthor is in a lot of these moments. Where he's like, "I'm literally gonna fucking stab you!" Like he just hates him. He hates him so much.
He really wants to murder him, and we always cheer for Lex.
Yeah,
we
honestly,
just really want.
like
we always do.
Yeah. Here's a nice thing about Hellboy too. He stays within his own continuity. He never diverges, or someone has to like come up with a whole new way to create this character like Superman, where you need like extra powers. You need like, what else can you use to stop him? Which kryptonite are we going to use this time? Red, green, yellow, blue?
Yeah, Hellboy's always Hellboy, and he always stays within his own canon sort of deal. They don't ever have to make new shit up for him.
Also, his strength is pretty, like, it's limited. Like, he knows when he's getting his ass kicked and is like, okay, I need to figure something out. And then at some point in the comic, he even says, I need help. Like, it's not very often that you see main characters or heroes or anti-heroes sort of be like, I need some help. And, like, it reminds me of, like Marvel recently did the Punisher series. And
where he gets the War Machine armor.
And,
Yeah, huh? He's donning the War Machine armor, pretty much. Like, the Iron Man armor with all the guns and rocket launchers.
The Punisher?
Yeah.
What the fuck? What is this? Like one of the recent comics?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
The Punisher becomes War Machine. All right, anyway, but...
Right. Well, so the Punisher gets beat up is my point. Like, he gets, like, in the show, he is just fucking destroyed in a lot of scenes and, like, broken, and he just keeps going. He had
bruises and cuts.
There's, like, the only time you see him not, like, really beaten down is right at the beginning of the show. Like, first episode. And then the rest of the season, he is just fucked up.
The main Punisher series or the Daredevil show?
Well, kind of both. But the main Punisher series this is also really good. But it's like the point of like that sort of storytelling, like I said, is to relate to them. But also, you kind of know that they may not survive the encounter. Like they might possibly die. And then it almost means more if something like that happens. And there's a lot of really good stories where the main character just dies at the end. And it almost had to happen or else they would escape. And then you feel that feeling where you're like, oh, like something's going to come in and save them. So you're never really worried about them at some points.
Comic books also has this weird rule of like you kill a character and it comes back a year later.
Right.
Like Superman, Wolverine,
Captain America.
Batman, Captain America. Like very popular, familiar characters always come back. But... and they always come up with some bullshit excuse to bring them back. Like they were in hibernation and they were just, or it's a different version of this character and they're coming back. So
what characters do you guys think of that were really popular characters when they were killed off and never brought back again?
Ooh, I'd have to think on that for a moment. Is this like any medium?
Yeah, any story you can think of. I don't know if I can actually think of one right now because like a lot of them.
Han Solo from Star Wars.
There you go. Yep, not coming back.
Yeah. Well, you never know.
Here's the thing.
They're literally bringing back fucking Darth Sidious. So it's like,
god damn it. Okay, what the fuck? Yep, I guess.
So they could do some nonsense like that and be like, what? No, he fell into some secret hibernation crate in the bottom and like got shot out of the Death Star before it exploded. Like some bullshit.
Also, Palpatine was also cloned as well.
That's true. You're right.
And
he had multiple. He either was cloned or he like transferred to many different bodies. So like that would be a pretty believable thing. I just didn't think they'd ever bring him back. Honestly, I did. That was kind of unexpected. I was like, I thought they just left him dead.
Here's another one. Rorschach from Watchmen. I believe that character is dead. The new show that's happening on HBO, they're carrying on the ideology of Rorschach, to an extreme of terrorism.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. But yeah, no, that Rorschach's another good example of a character that was really well developed in the show, and you pretty much grew. He's one of the favorites too, easily one of the favorites of Watchmen. I would argue.
He's a gumshoe character with these right.
Doesn't Spike die in Cowboy Bebop?
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. At the very end. Yep. Spike goes down.
Yeah, and you
with Vicious, I think.
They pretty much just kill each other.
Tank.
Yep. Tank is the name of the bad guy, or no? Tank doesn't die, does he?
No. Oh, we're Cowboy.
No, not Tank. Right. Cowboy Bebop. The song Tank is great.
Yeah.
but no, I think God, Jet lives.
Yes.
Jet lives. Ed lives. Val lives.
So before we sort of wrap things up, I do have just like a question or two about the comic, about Hellboy, and really kind of like how they're sort of getting into some of the comics, one of the questions I thought about was, do you feel that when comics are adapted into like a TV series or a movie, that they should just stick to it page to page, or do you think there has to be some sort of artistic like expression in some way, and they're going to change it slightly? Because that seems to be like the number one thing people are complaining about with adaptations, is that they feel it wasn't casted well, or it wasn't like the art style wasn't correct, or they felt that the character should have done something different. Do you think they should stick to it, or do you think they should have their own freedom and their own creative freedom to do something?
I feel like they should have their own freedom creatively, because I feel like sometimes comics lately have been treated as like saint or saint kind of stories. Like a perfect example is a Watchmen movie, where Zack Snyder took shot by shot, frame by frame, word by word of the Watchmen graphic novel.
Right.
Or even like Robert Rodriguez did Frank Miller's Sin City.
Yeah.
Which is very close to what goes on in the comic.
Yeah, it's like, man, some of it is like page to page of what was in there.
Yeah, but I prefer like any adaptation is different experience, like video games, books, movies, theater, music. Like the experience is different from however you consume it, and everyone's gonna have a different way of interpreting.
Right.
I agree that everyone's going to have a different way of interpreting the source material. However, I think that comics, in a sense, have some sort of theme or some sort of morality or idea that they're trying to pass along. And I feel like if you're like Watchmen's a good example of that, is that I think that the movie, in my opinion, the movie Watchmen did a really good job of expressing the point of the comics, which was an expression of failure.
Yeah.
And I think that it did a decent job of conveying that message that was in the comics as well. Not a perfect job, but a decent job.
I'm excited for that HBO show though. Same.
But I feel like, I do feel there should be some level of creative freedom with them, but I feel like they need to convey the main points of the material itself, because that's what a lot of people like the comics for, is because for the themes and whatnot. It's not always just about because I want to see this character punch this character. You know,
right.
It's like a little bit. There's always there's more in depth when it comes to writing, and whatnot, a lot of the time.
I feel like adaptations run the risk of changing the theme, like you said, or the flow of the storyline, because comics are like a distilled story. So each page that you're looking at is pretty much like a vignette. Like this is what they wanted you to see at that moment, and it's chosen very precisely. So to change up the flow and format of something like that runs the risk of changing the mood and setting of it, and then even the tone will come off as something different. So like you'll get like the comic that we just read and then the first Hellboy movie, which to me are not the same. They came off in different tones. The movie is a little more lighthearted, whereas in this one, Hellboy seems to reflect a lot on his own like existence and how he sort of fits into this world. And so that was the main theme. It's dark, it's noir, it's not lit very well. There's always these dark areas that he's going into. And so from a writing and like creative perspective, I feel like it shouldn't be changed too much. And if I ever like went to adapt something, I probably wouldn't change a whole lot, unless there's things that are just like happening off screen that you can sort of fill in, where it's like, well, how did they get there? Like, how did they get to this spot? Who else was talking during these scenes? Those are the kind of things where you can take really good creative freedom, because it gives you more context into what you're viewing. And so that would make sense for a movie, because a comic being adapted straight from what it is there would not be long enough. You have to like start filling in the spaces.
Chris Nolan also did his interpretation of Batman, which was 70 to 80 years of source material. And
right.
He had a story to tell with that character in that world. And it wasn't like involved with the DC world, but pretty much, but his own like, let's make this character cinematic.
Yeah, he did a really good job of turning it into a cinematic trilogy that wasn't like, it didn't seem like the earlier versions of Batman that were like Tim Burton and like you had the caricatures and things like that.
He wanted to bring Batman into the real world.
Yes, he made it very realistic, and you could have like an idea of who these characters would be.
Which becomes the model for our comic book adapted movies or shows that we're watching now.
Yeah, he very easily set up the expectation for what people were watching, especially when you get something as good as the Dark Knight with Heath Ledger, and just that sort of the villain and all the other people that were showing up there and their connections to each other. that was something I think people were waiting for a long time, to have that represented on screen and to have it be more realistic in a sense. The only thing that was kind of being taken off the page and put onto the screen was his makeup, and even that was changed. Like, he had slightly different makeup than he usually does. The scars, even the outfit is like a modern version of what his outfit is. So it was a cool adaptation in that sense.
Instead of like a 3-piece tuxedo.
Right, yeah. Like the long tails behind him.
Yeah, I don't know. Also, comic books, there's a view of comic books sometimes being funny books, pretty much. That it's just because it's illustrated, there's like word balloons.
Well, there was a long time.
It's not like books themselves.
Yeah.
Which you
well,
see.
Graphic novels are only recently being brought into literature classes.
Yeah.
Like, before that, they didn't consider them like good pieces of literature. And now you can take a class specifically on graphic novels because they are so important to the type of literature that's in like the media outlets that are pulling their resource material straight from these comics. And now suddenly they're really important. And this could be like an avenue that some artists and some writers can take. Is like, I'm going to write a comic first, and then I'm going to adapt that comic, and then I'm going to make a TV series out of it. And they keep doing that. And that sort of has become like the new thing to do, and how you spread around like a story. And you'll fill it in more and more as you get to different mediums. And that seemed to work out really well for Marvel. I think that's more of like a Disney thing, where they were like, we're going to spread this everywhere. Like, anything we can get out of it, we're going to do it.
But Marvel does that as well, like with their own books.
They did stay within comics, though. Like,
yeah.
It wasn't until being bought by such a large media giant that they were really spreading out.
They're taking the best
adaptations.
parts of Marvel.
Yes.
And using that to their advantage.
They also have a huge pool of resource material that they are just like never really going to run out of.
Which I'm still trying to figure out why Warner Brothers is still trying to figure out their whole DC universe.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it'll be really hard to compete at this point, but it's just, I can understand their willingness to be like, no, we're not going to sell out. We need to make our own content, or at least hang on to what we got.
I think they're just going to do these standalone movies.
Yeah.
Which the Joker is coming up, which I'm looking forward to, like a character study piece on the Joker.
That one looks really good. It's what Joaquin Phoenix is going to be?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's been an interesting dude. Like, he's had really interesting roles. I watched Her not too long ago. What a sad fucking movie.
Do you ever watch The Master?
Yes.
That's a fucking
also a really good
crazy movie too.
Yeah.
Very different people in both of those movies.
Always.
Too. Very different person.
He seems to me like he'd be like a method actor and would get really into like whatever he's doing, and he's just stuck like that for however long he's filming.
Just like the I'm Still Here thing he was doing.
Yeah, that was so weird.
Where he's just like chewing gum on David Letterman. It's like, huh?
Yeah,
And
he
doing
didn't
his
break
hip-hop.
character the whole time. It's super weird.
Yeah. Which even his documentary he was doing was like a lark, pretty much, of him doing like a hip hop career.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that too. Well, shit. All
Yeah.
right. Well, do you guys have any final thoughts on Hellboy? Or at least this comic?
Give it a read.
Yeah.
Go read it. It's a good one.
Don't compare it to the movies entirely.
Yeah. If you haven't seen the movie, go read the comic first.
Don't expect it to be like the movies.
Yeah.
Right.
It's richer. It's a different flavor. It's you don't have to worry about continuity so much with Hellboy.
Yeah, that's fair.
It doesn't detract from like weird story arcs or different change-ups that the creator Mike Mignola has done to that character. But I definitely highly recommend Hellboy, BPRD, Ape Sapien books to anybody who really wants to read Hellboy. And it would be fun to talk more about Hellboy again.
Right. I think we will either we'll do possibly one of the movies because it's so close.
Like maybe the first movie, then the new-ish movie, the
Yeah.
Harbor movie.
So maybe those or a different piece of the comics and how those sort of like came together for that. But this is a really good intro, and I liked if I wanted to show someone, I'd be like, yeah, go get this collection. It's a good intro into all of his stories. And I wish there was more of these kind of. I need to go find.
There's a second one.
Oh, I mean like with other comics where like they would bring them together for like a good place to start.
There's a lot of them. A lot of like the old school like Marvel comics and have omnibuses of like all of their stuff.
Nice.
If you just go to like the Barnes and Noble section, those big fat books are there.
Oh,
there.
the ones
Those
that are like $100.
Yeah, those things. Yep.
Yeah.
Those ones.
Amazon's just cheaper though.
That's
Amazon. Yep, you could always just Amazon it.
Or eBay, like some people.
Or eBay.
Yeah.
Man, I hate buying shit on eBay because I feel like I always lose.
You get gypped.
Yeah, or someone like has those automatic bids on, and you just keep fucking upping it, and they're like, okay, I guess I'm not gonna get it.
It's like bidding in Seinfeld for JFK's golf clubs.
Right.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming to talk with me. I want to remind everyone that we're super easy to find. We're on all of the streaming services, so we're on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, as well as SoundCloud. And then we also have our Instagram page and our Facebook page. Go on and comment, argue with us.
Yeah, argue with us. We see you.
Let us know.
How
Right.
Get Out and Us is not that scary.
Yeah.
We got some interesting comments, which is good because we like when people engage with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because we always don't have the right answers for everything, and we're willing to support like what we said and why we might have said something. And so we love that interaction, and it brings more attention to what we're doing and how you can kind of be participating in that. And we do want to talk to everybody. We love talking about this stuff, even outside of the podcast.
Yeah.
We'll have several conversations about it. So definitely hit us up if you can. Email us if you want to. You don't want to put it anywhere public.
Yeah.
But all of that works. So thank you guys.
Send your death threats anonymously.
Right. It's like, I'll find you.
I get
I'll
my
find you.
Anthrax in the mail.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming to talk with me about Hellboy. Hope you guys have a good night.
Stay spooky.
Thanks.